Welcome to the Ignite Christian Business Podcast. Today's episode is a session release from the Ignite Christian Business Conference, Ignite 22. Let's get started with guest speaker, Brian Searcy.
One of the reasons I founded the Paratus group was because of a company I actually started prior to getting into the safety area.
I'm up virtually in every major city. Is the world becoming a less safer place? We'll bring in our guest now. He is retired U.S. Air Force colonel and author of this book, Prepare for the Real World. The world is not a safe place.
The service have done report after report that says that we can prevent these things from happening if people have situational awareness, so they identify those things that are going around them.
And I talk all the time that the world is not a safe place. When I started with this, it was all about active shooter. But about a year and a half into the entire process, I realized that the threats that we face in our communities, in our schools, in our businesses, in our homes happen on a regular basis. And those are rape, sexual harassment, bullying, cyber, human trafficking. And unfortunately, the list can go on. And the sad thing is that today is that most Americans aren't aware that all those threats are out there. People may see what's going on, but they don't know what to do about it. And because they don't know what to do about it, they can't act on it. And that's my mission, is to educate them about why we have to have situational awareness, how the learning of it has to totally be different of traditional training, and how they need to be empowered to make a difference.
To talk about situational awareness is Brian Searcy. He is the president of the Paratus Group. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jeff, thanks for having me. A lot of companies that are in the safety and security space, if they're not selling the technology, they're going in and trying to teach somebody how to react in a crisis situation. But nobody is really teaching people how to try and prevent things from happening or to remove themselves from happening. Situational awareness is a tool that allows you to be the first responder and to save a life. I truly believe is one of the key solutions to what's going on in our society today. And I will also tell you that when you have this situational awareness mindset, habits, and behaviors that we talk about, you are empowered to make a difference in your own life and a difference in your community's life. At the Paratus Group, we do things differently. We don't use the traditional 1 or 2 hours of training. Our program, you're going to learn what situational awareness is. You're going to learn what the threats are. You're going to learn what the 10 critical personal skills are that you need to have situational awareness. And then we're going to introduce to you how over the next 90 days, you're going to have a micro e-learning program that is going to reinforce everything that we introduce to you and is going to allow you the ability for you to develop your own personal habits, behaviors, and mindset using the process that we teach you, so that at the end of those 90 days, you've developed your own situational awareness that you now can use to be the first responder and to potentially save a life, whether it's your own or it's somebody else's. I want our streets to be more safe, our schools to be more safe. We want people in general to be more safe. But I truly believe when people learn the 10 critical personal skills that go with it, we empower people to not be divisive. We could have conversations, and those conversations, we could have different opinions, but it didn't turn into an argument or it didn't escalate into something that we see on our streets today. So that's what motivates me, and that's what motivates the team at the Paratus Group.
So how many of you think that there are a lot of problems in our country and our society today? Raise your hand. Okay, so everybody pretty much raised their hand. How many people here are parents or grandparents? Raise your hand. Or soon to be parents, let me put it that way as well. Are you afraid for the safety of your kids? And it used to be you were afraid of the safety of your kids when they were out and about, but now one of the threats I'm going to talk about is human trafficking. And did you know that 1 out of 5 kids today is solicited online, either on their phone, on their computer, or on their gaming system? 1 out of 5. How many of you would like to actively be able to work to solve the problems that are going on in our country today? Raise your hand. Then you have a choice. That choice is to use the God-given tool that was given to you, which is situational awareness. It's that hair on the back of the neck or that gut feeling, which unfortunately most people today have no idea what it is, and if they do know what it is, they have no idea how to practice it. And that's because we've been doing traditional training for 30 years. It's because parents grew up without learning this skill, and they were not able to convey it to their kids. So again, we have to make a choice. Do we want to be prepared or unprepared, and do we want our kids to be prepared or unprepared? Now, it's taken us 30 to 40 years to get to where we are today. To fix it, we're not going to fix it overnight. And see, that's the other problem that's going on in our society today is we like quick fixes. I want to go to this 30-minute training, I want to read this one pamphlet, and I've got all the information I need, and now I can solve the problem. Well, if that were the case, we wouldn't have all these problems today. We have to take the time and learn and develop the habits and the behaviors and the mindset using a process. It's something that I've done for 34 years. It's how I learned to fly airplanes. It's how I've learned to use weapons to defend myself and my family. It's not by just reading a book or going to a class. So with our program, when you learn situational awareness, there's 3 key pillars that you are able to do. The first, safety and security. Talk about that in a second. Then there's also the mental health aspect. You prevent bad things from happening left of bang because you've developed situational awareness and these 10 critical skills, and you identify issues that are going on in the people that you love or the people that work for you. And then you're empowered to be able to do something about it. And then finally, as a leader, as a parent, but also as a believer, Eric was amazing. I was a little skeptical to come up and follow him. He did such a fantastic job. But he talked about how it starts with us, how we need to be the ones that are empowered to make a difference. So as parents, as believers, we have to have the skills that are necessary for us to be able to do that. I was in a program called Navigator 2.7, and it teaches people how to share their testimony. The problem was that when people would develop their testimony, they didn't use the 10 critical skills that you need to be able to actively listen and be perceptive and know what the other person's talking about. They would just dump their testimony on somebody. Like I said, I call it a bulldozer. Instead of figuring out, am I the right person to even talk to this person? And how does my testimony relate to that person? See, without this God-given gift that we all have, and without it being developed, we're not able to do that. Next slide, please, Ben. I come up here and half the time I scare people, half the time I don't, but the whole thing, like I said, is you have to make a decision. Do you want to be prepared? Do you want to be unprepared? And do you want your kids to be prepared or unprepared? Because the world is not a safe place. We've had thousands of people go through our program, and here's the scary thing. I talked about a bunch of threats in that video, from rape to cyber to bullying to suicide, sexual assault, human trafficking. Here's the scary statistic, folks. In our program, everybody takes a 9-question survey, and question number 5 asks, how many of you, either personally or within your immediate family, have been exposed to one of these threats? 92%. Over 9 out of 10 people that take our program have had one of these threats that they've actually had to deal with. So again, ask yourself, do you want to be prepared or unprepared? And do you want your kids, do you want your friends and neighbors to be prepared or unprepared? Ben, next slide. The next one is the 10 critical skills that we talk about and the ability to identify changes in other people's behavior. Eric talked about how you need to feed into your people, and you need to be that person that is there for them. Well, if you can't identify what's going on with them, how do you do that? How do you do that if you don't have the skills to be able to do it, or like Eric talked about, take the time to be able to do that? That's why that is so critical. There's a statistic on here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but 80% of kids today resolve problems through violence or anger because they have not developed the 10 critical skills. They don't know how to have a conversation so that it doesn't get out of hand. That's why it's so critical for us to learn these skills. I have a very good friend of mine who's in the safety security space like I am. And his company goes around and teaches leaders of churches how to put together a security program to make the church safe. Then the Paratus group comes in and we teach everybody else in the church. So instead of 10 sets of eyes, there's 200 sets of eyes to make the church safe, okay? That's why that is so important with what we do. But he shared a story on a webinar I shared with him 2 weeks ago. So he was doing what we always talk about from a safety perspective, is paying attention to who's coming into the church. And there was somebody that came in that looked like they might be a problem. So he paid attention to him, but you know, he went up and just had a conversation with him, and what he learned because he practiced situational awareness, he practiced active listening, he practiced empathy. He found out that this person, a young man, was hurting, was in trouble. And instead of ignoring it, he went and got the youth minister. The youth minister came and talked to this young man for an hour and a half and found out that just prior to coming into the church, this young man was considering killing himself. So because he had the ability to see what's going on with this young man, number one, but number two, he was able to act on it, they saved a young man's life that night. Final slide, please. I talked about the bulldozer, and I talked about sharing your testimony. How many people here have a testimony that they're ready to share as a believer? Raise your hand. How many of you have actually shared your testimony? Okay, that's fantastic. But like I said, if you don't have situation awareness and when you're having a conversation with somebody, if you're not able to figure out how does my testimony apply to this person, and then able to tailor that testimony so that seed that you're planting actually can potentially take root, if you're just a bulldozer, you're gonna turn people off. And I would see that all the time, and that's what's going on today when we are talking to non-believers especially. They don't wanna listen to us because we are just bulldozing into them. We are not taking the time to know how I can impact this individual. Should I even impact this individual right now, right? Or even more importantly, like my friend decided he wasn't the person to talk to him, somebody else was. Who in my sphere can talk to this person and feed this person and do a better job than I could do, right? Next slide. It all is about learning and developing situation awareness. The Paratus Group partners with for-profit companies and nonprofit companies around the country so we can come in and introduce what this is all about. I wrote a book. It's called Prepare for the Real World. You saw an example of it on that little thing I did on Newsmax. One of my free gift to everybody, there's a card on your table. It's got a QR code on it. You can either buy the book, but what you can get for free on the side that has the statistics at the front, if you click on that, put in your name and your email, you will get a free copy of the document that we put together that is an introduction to the 10 critical skills that we all need to learn and develop to have situational awareness. And then if you need to get in touch with me, email is up there. You can also get a hold of me on the website. Like I said, our mission is to travel around the country and speak to churches, community organizations, so that parents and business owners like yourself can learn how important the development of this skill is, and then learn this skill, make sure everybody in your community learns this skill so that you become first responders to save lives. But more importantly, everybody works together, because as a community, that's like Nehemiah said, that is how we are going to change and take back our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
We want you to be ignited. We'd love for you to join us on the next Ignite Community Call. These happen live on Zoom on the second Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We host a special guest who shares their wisdom and encounters with God over the time that they have followed God in their business. Registration is entirely free, but it is required due to limited spaces. You can register and learn more at ignite-cb.com.